So I just got done watching the video that everyone was talking about here in British Columbia called Finding Big Country. This in regards to Bryant Reeves of the Vancouver Grizzlies. And I kind of want to give you my recollection of it because kind of what was mentioned in that video, you know, obviously Vancouver and British Columbia, they've kind of forgot about the Grizzlies over time. They just treated them like a distant memory, almost like they didn't exist. And yes, the team was dreadful for 6 years, but it really wasn't all the organization's fault. At least the early part was. I mean, now I got to start from the beginning here. Um, as a kid, I got into basketball around, I think it was 1991, 1992, and that was during the days of the Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls era. I was a huge Chicago Bulls fan back then, like many kids were. And in 1994, now granted, it was a very exciting year for Vancouver and BC in 1994 because, you know, the Canucks made the Stanley Cup Finals and they were just 2 goalposts away from a Stanley Cup. It was upsetting because I hated the Rangers. I might do a video on the Rangers and that later, but for now, let's stay on topic here. And obviously the BC Lions won the Grey Cup here later that year. That was amazing. Definitely an exciting time. And like many kids, we were talking about it in the school year. We're like, oh my God, we're getting the Vancouver Grizzlies. We're gonna get a basketball team in our backyard, meaning we're gonna be able to go see games. Because again, you know, even though basketball was invented by Canada, we didn't have any teams. Then keep in mind, we found out that Toronto was getting a team, and that was just, again, there was a lot of excitement in the air for both Vancouver and Toronto as well. I was like, yes, you know. Now, even as a kid, I knew, because I remembered that, you know, a lot of expansion teams, they tend to struggle at first. I mean, I knew that. I knew the guys, it's not going to, just get ready, they're going to suck at first, but give it time, okay? I mean, look at the San Jose Sharks when they first started here in the NHL. They were horrible. Their first season was absolutely dreadful. But in a few years, hey, they got into the playoffs. In 94, they got into the playoffs. They upset the Detroit Red Wings. You know, I'm still mad about that, by the way, in 1994 playoffs. And they went on to have a very good team later on. So, but my thought was, oh my God, I'm going to be able to see some games. I'm going to be able to, now we all talked about it. Now, you have to consider that in both Toronto and Vancouver's first year of the draft, when they were able to draft, both teams got screwed royally, and that upset a lot of us. I remember that too. I mean, I think Vancouver got, you know, 6th overall, and now Toronto got a late pick, and ultimately that proved to be absolutely a disaster for both teams, and both teams really struggled to get off the ground. Now, Toronto, keep in mind, they had a much larger population, so I think they had more support for the organization. And over time, you know, they were getting good picks. They were drafting well, but unfortunately, there was a lot of conflict, as much as in Vancouver. One of the biggest issues was the low, again, Canada had our dollar was very low at the time. We also had a lot of taxation, you know, with the federal Liberal Party in charge of the 90s, and here in BC we had the dreadful NDP, so taxes were very high back then. We didn't have a lot of the investment in capital back then as well, so that's enough about politics right now. Let's focus on ultimately what went wrong. Now, granted, the thing with Bryant Reeves, or Big Country Reeves as we all called him, was, don't get me wrong, the first few, like, you know, his first couple of seasons, you know, he did very well for himself. Rebounds, getting to the hoop, getting to the basket. He was big, he was powerful, he was strong. Even Shaq himself said he was fearful of him, you know. But as you know, in 1998, 1999, there was the lockout. More on that later. And ultimately, Bryant Reeves was out of shape and wasn't in good physical condition. Now, granted, okay, look, blame's got to fall on the league for having the lockout, but blame's also got to fall on Reeves too. I mean, clearly he should have, kept himself in better conditioning. But granted, though, for big men, it's very hard. So, it's hard to stay in shape. And, I just think, no, there were other factors. Maybe the spotlight was just too much. I don't know the full story. I mean, but granted, it's not that the Grizzlies didn't draft well. I mean, they drafted Mike Bibby. They brought in Sharif Abdur-Rahim in spite of the losing seasons, which, again, it was disheartening. It was very disheartening. I've gone to 4 Grizzly games myself, and they didn't win any one of them. That was the sad part about it. Ironically enough, I saw 2 Texas teams in that. I saw, during one of their last games, I think 99, 2000, I saw San Antonio. And then I think it might have been 1998 when I saw them play Houston. And that was Barkley's last year. That was Michael Jordan's last year. I tried for the Chicago. I tried for Toronto. I tried for a lot of the major teams, but unfortunately, there were quick sells. Probably the only 2 times I ever really sold out was during those games. I got to see one for free. I remember that. And I think it was against Golden State back then. But obviously, where things really went wrong was 1999. They drafted Steve Francis, and Steve Francis had that incident at the airport, and Steve Francis really stated that he was not going to play in Vancouver because of that incident and other issues too. And then there was obviously with what was going on with Bryant Reeves, his physical condition due to injuries. And it was so disheartening because they had Abdur-Rahim, they had Mike Bibby at the time. So had Francis had stayed, I mean, who really knows? Especially in 99, 2000, and in the 2000, 2001, which was their last season. I'm not saying they would have, made the playoffs. I'm not saying that, that it, that it would have worked, but I do think it could have worked. And I really grew to despise Francis after that. I mean, I lost all respect for the man. I never really did like him after that. Because ultimately, I do firmly believe most of the blame falls on him, and most of the blame falls on ownership. One McCaw, who also, messed up the Vancouver Canucks with Mark Messier. And it was so unfortunate with the Grizzlies always ending up in last place or close to last place, losing all those games, with the Vancouver Canucks losing all those games, and with the BC Lions being an average team. It was not a good, I mean, they really kicked British Columbia, BC, Vancouver when they were down, sports-wise, because it was so aggravating and frustrating and just disheartening. And then seeing Steve Francis take off in Houston and seeing, basically Vancouver still struggle. I mean, they could have had that marquee player. They could have had that draw, somebody that would have brought people in. They could have had jersey sales, merchandise sales, but unfortunately, it was all for naught. Now, I know a lot of people have negative opinions about Canada. That's fine, A lot of people have negative opinions about America and other countries. It is what it is. Now, I mean, I know some people were happy to see them go because, it was just, all the losing was a lot taken. But I remember being kind of sad because I kind of realized I'm not going to be able to watch a game anymore because I'm not going to be able to go to Vancouver to watch any more of their games. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's nothing like seeing a basketball game live, especially at NBA level. And it was kind of disheartening because, in Toronto, the pieces were starting to fit. Even though Toronto had their, turbulence too for, especially with Vince Carter and the Tracy McGrady situation. A lot of the drafts not sticking around. Keep in mind, Toronto had Marcus Camby, they had Damon Stoudemire. So Toronto was drafting well, Vancouver was drafting well, but it's just, they weren't panning out. I know that Tracy McGrady's biggest issue was the harsh winters in Toronto. So, I mean, it also kind of, I know this video is all over the place, but it also stems from, like, again, their first year of draft. They didn't get the top 5. They got royally screwed. Both teams did. So that really played a part in it too. I mean, like, and we all know the NBA draft's rigged. It's proven, I mean, time and time again. Now I know that there's talks of a team coming back. It's been talks for the past few years. I'm 50-50 on it. Do I want it to happen? Yes. And the game has grown considerably. I mean, people from all over the world are coming over now, not just America. I mean, there's players from Canada. We got players from, Europe, Australia, So I'm not ruling it out completely, but keep in mind, I mean, we are in the midst of a pandemic right now. Our dollar's crappy here in Canada. Politically, we're not in a good situation here in Canada, especially here in British Columbia. I don't mean to get political, but I'm just telling you what's going on here. I know I've talked about it in my videos, but Toronto's well off. They got a championship. They, an established market. And that's another thing too. I mean, we always kind of, a lot of us basketball fans here, we do kind of wonder, man, could have been. Imagine a championship in Vancouver, because all we've really had was the Grey Cup, really, and that's kind of a second-rate championship. It's not global. I mean, if you don't know, the Grey Cup is the championship in CFL, but we've had the Memorial Cup, which was great. That was a great one in 2007. I remember that. I was there for it too. I was at the parade. I was at a few of the Grey Cup parades. I know the Canucks have had their final runs, and as many of you know, it was very disastrous for Vancouver because of the rioting. And, Vancouver, 52 years and, 51 going on 52 years, no Stanley Cup. It's just, and I can't see them winning in a foreseeable future. No offense, Canuck fans, but that's just my opinion. But I know I'm rambling here, but I just want to give you my recollection of, my memories of it. And, yes, I support the idea, but I think everything's got to line up perfectly in order to do that, in order to make it happen again. I mean, but right now, I kind of don't see it right now, anytime soon, because with what's going on in the world right now. If a team does come back, I'll definitely go down and watch, because again, I've only seen 4 NBA games in my life. If I do move to Ontario, if I do move to, Quebec, I might see a game. I know that there was talks of Quebec getting a team, Montreal, and I think Montreal could do it, if it happens. But again, the problem is the majority of, a large majority of people are Raptor fans, so it's going to be very hard to separate the two. And the problem is with Vancouver is that their loyalty will always lie with the Canucks. That's just the way it is. So let me know, anyone from BC, what were your memories of the Vancouver Grizzlies? Were you happy to see him go? Were you sad to see him go? I was kind of sad to see him go. Largely for the fact that we just weren't going to have any, games anymore. I wasn't going to be able to go anymore. But till then, let me know what your thoughts are. Do check out that documentary, by the way, Finding Big Country. I remember seeing the adverts for it when I was in Vancouver a few years ago. I just watched it last night. It was very interesting. And now, in closing, I'm happy for Big Country. I won't spoil the documentary for you. I recommend watching it. But until then, that's all I got. If I missed anything or left anything out, maybe I'll do a follow-up video. I don't know. But until then, please rate, comment, subscribe. Take care, everyone.